Before we kick things off, I do want to, ask all of us to introduce ourselves for those of you who don't know who we are. So maybe Sadie, if you don't mind starting with just a little bit of your background.
Sure, Sadie Church, Vice President of Driver Relations at Artur Express. I grew up in the industry. My dad was a driver my whole life. Spent many, many weeks over the road all growing up. Have been very fortunate over the years to work with some really, really wonderful companies, industry that I am truly passionate about and really, really love being a part of.
Dave?
I'm Dave Harrison, Executive Director for Workforce Development and Government Relations. Got a couple other hats I wear. I'm the trash man when my wife says so, and I sweep the floors really well. I'm lucky enough to work with an organization that is contracted with the Department of Labor. We're on our third contract cycle, which is pretty remarkable in itself because only 3 out of the original 16 made it that far. We have put 23,000 plus people to work in transportation and currently working with about 195 employer partners.
Awesome, thank you. And Jeremy Reymer, founder of DriverReach. This is year 20 for me in the industry, and all I've ever done is be on the side of recruiting, qualifying, and hiring drivers. So it's exciting to be here and talk about this because even though I was focused, I owned a staffing company for 15 years or so, and then before I started DriverReach, I've always been really passionate about the demand for drivers and the fact that we needed younger entrants into the industry, and especially when you've got an age limit of 21, right, from a regulatory standpoint. Yet the average age of a new entrant is, usually depending on who you ask, somewhere between 35 and 38. That's a problem. That's a systemic problem, and how do we address that? And so, fun fact, Lindsay Trent, president of Next Generation in Trucking, used to actually work for me at my staffing company, and I'm sharing this for a couple of reasons. One, I'm super proud of her as Next Generation in Trucking celebrating their second year. But I introduced her to the trucking industry. She was in liquor distribution sales in Louisville, Kentucky. She applied for a job and she won me over. She was fantastic. And so she worked for me for a few years before I ended up selling that company, and she stayed in the industry, which I'm grateful for. And then fast forward a year or two later, she probably 18 or 19 or so, she said, we were talking, and she said, she's really passionate about, we need younger drivers in this industry, and we need to get them out of high school and create a path, and I'm agreeing with her. And I asked her, told her that I had just had a conversation with this guy, Dave Dine, in California, in Patterson, California, because he's doing exactly that. And I said, you two should talk. You're gonna love this guy. And so I introduced them, and I stepped away. I've got a day job. And fast forward, and they formed an association and celebrating 2 years, and they're making some headway, and there's a ton of support. And in fact, I know there's a number of folks that are here that are members. It's on the screen here. And first of all, join me in applauding for all of you who are supportive of Next Generation in Trucking. I'm honored to be a founding executive board member, and really proud of the work that they're doing. So I know before we kick things off, and we've got some questions here, before we do that, I would like to share a video.
As I got into this class, I learned more about this industry and how important it is for our country, and our country depends on truckers, and truckers are our heroes, and I want to be one of them.
Hey guys, my name is Cesar Medina.
Ricardo Jimenez.
Eduardo Dominguez Sotelo.
Ryan Cabral.
Bella Sotelo.
Diego Escalera. Luis Cervantes.
Fabian Inns. Ricardo Alameda.
And this is Sahil Bali.
Milani Baradas.
David Castillo.
Leon Rodriguez, and I am enrolled in the PHS trucking program. Now that I've taken this class,
it made me realize exactly how much responsibility I have.
Trucking really plays a big role in my community.
Truck driving really keeps the economy going.
Everything around you is there because of truckers.
And we've noticed this with the shortage and how we haven't had some of the material goods we've wanted.
Truck drivers are really needed right now, and if we start teaching drivers at a young age, it'll give truck driving a better image.
It's just a great way to learn new things about the industry.
And maybe gain some insight on what truck driving really is like.
Basically, the atmosphere in here, everyone's nice, there to help each other. And
if it wasn't for the instructor, I don't think I would have found the passion for trucking.
It makes us feel like the teachers want us to succeed.
And also, my ultimate goal in life is to become a diesel mechanic. So knowing how to drive the truck and fix the truck, I feel like it'll open up a lot of opportunities for me.
And maybe later on we'll be like helping the country out, inspiring other young individuals to join and get into the trucking industry.
And honestly, I think you'd be amazed at how wonderful it can be.
That tells the story, right? That's what they're doing. That's the impact that they're having, and now taking that and expanding it across the country. Now, I said after I show that video, we'll get into some of the questions. I know I'll start with you, Sadie. I know that you had a recent event that I think was quite impactful, that was attracting some young people. Thanks, buddy. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that, kind of giving some backdrop?
Sure. So I am a volunteer for Next Generation in Trucking. And one of the things we decided we wanted to try was a career fair. So Artur Express hosted the first high-wage, high-demand career fair, and we targeted local high schools in our area. We actually hosted it at our terminal. So we invited juniors and seniors who had expressed an interest in learning more about the transportation industry to come. We also invited companies in our area, other Class A companies, Class B companies, a CDL school, a diesel mechanic school, and we invited them all to our terminal for a career fair with the high school students, and let them get in the trucks, let them talk with people from different companies, find out ways that they could transition from high school to an over-the-road career if that's what they wanted, and what that career path would look like for them.
Is that something you anticipate continuing to do on some sort of regular basis? And
Yes.
if so, kind of,
Yeah.
what was the feedback maybe that you got from there, and how might you change that?
Yeah, so we learned a lot, right, as you do when you're doing these things. If you have any interest in doing this, highly recommend, excuse me, you start working with the schools. If you can, before the school year even starts, when they're doing their transportation budget for field trips and things like that. So start as early as possible in the year. We did wait, unfortunately, we realized we waited a little too long. A couple of the schools had to decline because they no longer had the transportation budget, so learn from our mistakes, please. So plan early, try to engage, or try to target more highly engaged students, so that there's higher intention, right? They're asking really good questions. It was a really wonderful experience. All the high school students who were there were incredibly engaged. I would say 80% of them talked about the TikTokers they follow. So that was really, really cool. If you're not on TikTok, please get on TikTok. Really important to start engaging that younger generation.
Introduce them to Mike, right? Who's here and was sharing a lot on panels yesterday. I know, well, first of all, I think that's great, and you don't know until you start doing it, and then you realize some of the things that you just shared, and that's helpful, obviously, for any of us that want to do that as well. But at the same time, you got to start planting seeds, right? You got to plant seeds. I know Dave certainly preaches that. Dave Dine in Patterson, California, and this Dave does too. And so I know if you, maybe Dave could share, obviously I think we all agree, we've got to start getting them younger. We have to address the systemic issue of the disparity between a 21, age limit and the fact that, you're getting people in their, mid-30s. What, once somebody does get hired, can you share maybe about what that process of, and the benefits of an apprenticeship, because you've certainly got to build a pipeline, right? How does an apprenticeship work?
Well, first off, it benefits both to the apprentice and the employer. The employer perspective is retention's higher. You can go look up the data on apprenticeship.gov. Across 23,000 existing apprenticeship programs, you're looking at 93% retention rate. Are you getting that on truck drivers? No. But I will tell you this, we put 22,000 truck drivers to work, 23,000 people altogether, and our retention rate's 24% higher than a conventional process coming out of CDL school and on. Because you're creating a community, a culture. We were talking about this in mentoring session earlier. Those companies who are smart. I got an OTR carrier that they increase their retention by simply getting a gold medal magnet medallion that they put on the truck when somebody completes the apprenticeship program. They completed the gold program, and they start talking about it that way. And people high up the food chain. The thing is that you have to wrap your arms around people and train them to be part of train them the way you want them to be and be part of your community. Well, you have a vehicle that you can get tax credits as an employer. You can extend benefits out to people that they couldn't get otherwise. You can get WIOA dollars because you're part of what's called the eligible trainer provider list because you're a registered apprenticeship program. And I said this yesterday, and I keep telling people this, it costs you no more than what you are spending if you're training, and or no more than what you're willing to spend if you're not training and you figure out you have to. Because to your point, we are in a silver tsunami. The aging of the workforce is killing us, and there's not a replacement. Next Gen is there doing that. I met Lindsay when she was still at Ryder and had many calls with her before she made this leap. And she's doing God's work, in my opinion, because it is so needed. And so this is a segue between pre-apprenticeship, high school, doing outreach, and an employer who has a registered apprenticeship program can tie those processes together and bring someone in and make sure that in a 2-year window, that person is a proficient, safe, professional truck driver in the mold that you would cast them in.
Can you share just a little bit, especially the benefits of an apprenticeship, like a Department of Labor apprenticeship versus just finishing school?
Well, I just talked about one because retention's higher universally across the board, and retention's ROI, simply put. The other part is that if you look at the standard that the ATA, TCA, Trucking Alliance, and everybody else has adopted that aligns with the DOT language, has ELDT language in it, aligns with the DOL language, the DOD IMAP, you're insulated to some extent from a liability standpoint on negligence and training. And that by itself in the age of nuclear settlements is huge. Yeah. Anything you do with it. And I said this yesterday, and since the White House Challenge, December 21, I've probably had 30 companies that have been able to renegotiate insurance so they could take on drivers with less experience, younger drivers, things like that, just because they have the registered apprenticeship in their hand and they're showing it and they show how it links across the board. So a finishing program is a finishing program. If you're already training people, you have an apprenticeship, you just haven't formalized it, and you're not getting any benefits that you would get otherwise.
Right, yeah, and I think that's kind of the point I was trying to drive in. I know that it's almost like a chicken or the egg scenario where, obviously 18-year-olds can get CDLs in most states, and they certainly can operate in most states, but not in an interstate capacity, right? In an intrastate capacity only. So there are a lot of limitations, but at the same time, you've got to plant the seed. You've got to get them interested and involved. And if you can, one of the things, the reason when I talked to Dave Dine the first time, this is years ago, I was asking, how are you doing that? Are they able to, is there jobs for them afterwards? He said, yes. They're working at these warehouses in Patterson, California. There are options for them. They just, I think most of the country doesn't know that. And I want to go off script just a little bit because I do want to talk about the Drive Safe Apprenticeship Act, because that is something that is in the works right now. We tried to do this before with veterans, and we just didn't get any traction. And I think everyone felt like we're going to get traction now, but there have been some barriers. Can you maybe share a little bit of maybe an update on where we are with that program?
About going to the sausages made a little bit. A guy named Selden Frischner with the DOT actually designed the military program that came out. And I would tell you it was never designed to be any kind of volume because it was very focalized. It was a proof of concept that was designed to lead to the point of Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. Now, we know that this was part of the infrastructure deal, and it got integrated into other things, and some things were thrown into it were never intended, as many things happen coming out of DC. Yeah, you have something, it's a great idea, a great concept, you work on it, you think you know what it is, it goes in one end of the gonculator between the beltway, and it comes back out looking like Quasimodo's mother. It got hit by a hammer, and it's the same with several things that we've worked on. One of the problems they put in the inward-facing cameras, there's been such pushback on that. And then getting the FMCSA to understand that was one of the big problems. And then, and I remember talking to somebody fairly high at the FMCSA, and they said, well, they're safer. Well, if you got no one driving, it doesn't matter if they're safe or not. We're all starving. So there's got to be a middle ground. What we're seeing is legislation has come out of the House now which will remove the inward-facing driving portion of that, which is highly needed. I was literally on phone calls yesterday with some people in the Department of Labor who were meeting with the DOT again. We've done personal outreach to about 500 companies who are interested in the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, ranging in scale from very large to very small. We've onboarded a significant number of them. They have not started yet because, quite frankly, there's, like anything else with the government, there's miscommunication from one person to the next, who are all supposed to be referent authorities. So the silver lining is they're finally getting their stuff together there. It's going to be like anything else. It's got to start somewhere. Once it starts and it gains traction, then we're going to see it. You know, those people who are opposed to it, and I'm going to say this and I'll shut up on this, and I'm welcome to talk. I'll talk to anybody about the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program in detail to you want to pass out if you wish. But the one thing where people challenge this concept, because Jeremy just talked about it, there are people all our lives who've been driving trucks in every state but one who were 18, 19, 20 years old on interstates and on roads and next to you, and you didn't know it. And it boggles my mind that somebody could live in the state of Texas and drive from one end to the next and have to shut down, reset hours, but you live in Delaware and you can't leave the state. And you could be in 5 different states in 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make any sense. The road doesn't magically change because there's a boundary. You know, that road is still the same road. So I think that we, like the government normally does, they put too many steps and procedures because things are poorly understood, and quite frankly, people are making policy decisions about trucking who don't know what a fifth wheel is. So we're getting there. I think that we have to get there. I think we have to engage it because we're not getting enough people in, and if we don't engage high schools using every apparatus possible and those students and give them the value. We talked yesterday about how the industry presents itself. If we don't start presenting ourselves to those folks, because don't count on the education system to do it, because they have failed miserably for 50 years doing it. Okay, off my soapbox.
Quasimodo's mother getting hit with a hammer.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to forget that. That was great. I know the administration is, this administration is certainly supportive of this concept, right? Yes. They are very much so. They've been very vocal about that, and I think Congress is too. But they don't know. They're learning. Right, they're learning as they go through and deal and work closely with the industry and with various associations, and they're talking to people like you guys. They're talking to people who are informing them of how things work and how it needs to work in order to get this thing off the ground. And so, but attracting them, right? We need to attract younger students. You got to get them interested. You got to plant the seed. And you mentioned TikTok. Like let's talk about what are the ways, the methods that we can engage with them and start kind of bringing them into our orbit as we try to get them closer to hopefully wanting to embrace a career in the industry?
So I think it starts with meeting them where they are, right? We use a lot of social media. We are very big in TikTok now. We have an entire Trucking 101 series. This is what the inside of a truck looks like. We know this is not our target demographic, right? That these videos aren't intended for drivers I can hire. Mm-hmm. We hire with 18 months of OTR experience, right? So what we're getting out of this is just educating the general public on this is what trucking is, this is what it looks like, this is the inside of a cab, an OTR driver lives here, here's where the refrigerator is, here's where the microwave is, TV, here's how we, cook on the road, here's an APU, here's what it does. So just those general education things.
And telling a story, mm-hmm. right? That's what you're using that,
right.
Videos, TikTok, the methods of being able to communicate and tell the story, get them interested. You're planting that seed. Anything you'd want to add to that, Dave?
Well, I had a conversation first night I was here during the social initially, and somebody's older like me was like, I just don't know about the social media thing. I don't understand it. And I said, do you ever fish? He said, I fish all the time. I said, when you go to a new place to fish, you adapt how you fish to the scenario you're in. The water's darker, you got to use different colors. You're fishing for this, you got to do this. The temperature changes. There's all these different things. It's no different. I don't fish for the same, I fish all the time, guys, and I'll talk fishing all day long, but TikTok is just another lure. Okay, think of it that way. If you're stuck in that modality of I've got to do it this way, because look, we've been doing it the same way over and over again, and it's not working now. It's just not. If it was working, we wouldn't be sitting here. All right, so to your point, I don't TikTok, but I got people that work for me TikTok all the time. And I'm smart enough to turn somebody loose that knows more than I do about that, because I know I got to get messages across to these people. If we don't, we are preparing to fail. It's that simple.
I know there's a lot of, you've heard this a lot in scope of the effort to get younger drivers into the industry and get the pilot program off the ground. You get a lot of people that'll say, 18-year-olds should not be driving a truck, right? It's offensive, honestly, to hear that, but I understand why they say that. But we all know, because we hire drivers that are far older than that, there's plenty of them that have no business being behind the wheel. But you can hire them, and obviously if they don't have anything that would preclude you from hiring them from a safety standpoint, you might. But their behavior might be pretty poor. There's obviously plenty of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who will do fantastic and be great ambassadors of the industry, and I'm a firm believer that that's how obviously we get to tell our story. We got to plant these seeds in schools and work with people like Next Generation in Trucking and how they're spreading this curriculum throughout the states and different schools. But I think to really get over the hump is to put yourself in the shoes of a junior in high school, who the senior, a friend of yours, graduates, has a CDL. Most people, I don't know, a lot of people leave high school, they go to college. Not because they're trying to get, an education, it's because they want to get the hell out of the house, right? Under their parents' thumb in some cases. It's just fun, it's a reality, and you're free. What an opportunity that same type of person has to get into the trucking industry, to drive a truck, to operate a CDL, learn, and make good money. To that junior who sees his friend saying, wow, you're making good money and you're doing all this stuff, that's really cool, I want to do that. So I think there's an opportunity, once we can get it going, it's almost infectious. So that's my soapbox for that, because I really do think once you can get that going and you see some results, it'll take care of itself. But I do have a question for both of you, because obviously we've been spending the last couple days here, we've taken in a lot of really good content, a lot of really good conversations that we've been having. For this group, and especially on this topic, I'll ask each of you to share what would be the one takeaway, what's the one call to action for us as we leave, and to not forget, what can we do to further this cause?
I would recommend everyone join Next Generation in Trucking, get involved, and volunteer. There are plenty of opportunities to help spread the word that trucking is not only a viable career path, but it can be a very lucrative and meaningful career.
Excellent. Dave?
I'm going to piggyback off your soapbox and then follow up from that. I said earlier, everyone in this room has been in a vehicle next to someone who was 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, driving something that weighed more than 26,000 pounds. Every one of us. Been going on for quite some time. You just didn't know it. Okay, so that's not a new concept. The new concept is awareness, and really public awareness. And they start saying, well, they shouldn't be doing it. Well, they've been doing it. The other part about this is, I was in the United States Army Infantry for a long time, jumped out of planes on top of people who like me very much on purpose. I'm not the smartest person here, obviously. Yes. But the point is that I had 18 and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds that worked for me, that carried weapons that could kill a lot of people real quick. And I trusted them to things that made life and death decisions on a moment's or a second's notice. And because they were trained and they were made part of our community, they performed. There is no difference in taking a young person out of high school in like a Dave Don Patterson program or like the Drive program in Pennsylvania or those kind of programs and give them that foundation and then bring them into a pre-apprenticeship foundation and then bring them into a registered apprenticeship, a structured training program, a competency-based that has real ELDT alignment to it, and you give them those skill sets, you make them part of that community, and they will be great. Guarantee it. I think that the other part is you need to invest in going to high schools. You need to invest in the social media aspect. You need to tell the message. This is what we are. This is what we do. This is what you can get. This is what will, this is a career path. Recruitment does not work without articulating a career path. I've said that several times the last 2 days. And the same thing with high school kids or young kids, because a lot of them don't know what they don't know. And again, education has failed miserably in educating kids for 40 years on what their options really are and what things really are, because they don't understand it. Well, who understands it? We understand it. So we have to take the mantle. And if you're not prepared to invest in that, you're not prepared to be around in about 20 years. I mean, it's a sad fact. I like the things that the ATA and the TCA and the Trucking Alliance and others are doing and how they're integrating for the next gen, because the reality is that every single one of us that wants to see this industry stay as viable as possible and have national security, because national security and economic security is the heart of everything we do. Because it's done here, the whole thing is done. Okay, the rest of it won't matter. And if we do not engage, educate, inspire, and motivate the high school students of today and the young people, 21, I'll say 24 and below, and educate them about our industry and make a concerted effort to do so, we will not have enough people to drive the supply chain. And we've already seen what minor interruptions in supply chains will do, and that won't be minor. Now I sound like I'm on a soapbox.
Well, Sadie said, join Next Generation in Trucking.
Yes.
Which, definitely appreciate that and agree with that. And your point is you got to go to the schools. You got to get in front of them. And then I would just to add to that is kind of maybe a meshing of the two, what you said earlier. You got to tell your story, right? You got to tell the story. You got to plant that seed. You got to let them know what a great industry this is. Look around. I mean, some of us have known each other for, in some cases, I've been in the industry 20 years, for 20 years. Plenty of you have been around, longer than that and have known each other. This is a great industry, but they don't know that. We want them to. We want to tell that story, and so I think it's letting them know what a great industry it is, what a great opportunity that they have. I mean, even when times are tough, drivers are always going to be employed. So it's a great position to be in. Sadie, Dave, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for supporting Next Generation.
Thank you. You too.